Good evening. It's Wednesday, April 22nd. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Another deadly day in San Diego County, one day after the largest single-day loss of life. Today, county health officials announced 9 new deaths and 57 newly confirmed cases. We are also seeing the first tiny step announced in the complicated process of turning California's economy back on. KPBS reporter John Carroll has more.
San Diego County's Task Force on Testing hopes sometime soon to begin sharing its goal of how many tests need to be done daily in the county, that from Supervisor Nathan Fletcher. KPBS's Matt Hoffman asked about whether the county should follow National City in requiring residents to wear facial coverings when they leave their homes. That brought this response from the county's medical director.
I think that they are making a local recommendation because of the increased number of cases that they're having locally. So we would support local decision makers making that kind of decision.
Governor Newsom says there will be 6 indicators his administration follows in the process of lifting stay-at-home orders. He announced those last week. Today, movement on one of them, number 3, the one having to do with the capacity of hospitals in the state. The governor says such good progress has been made there, both in expanding capacity and assuring the health and safety of healthcare workers, that one big thing can return to how it was before COVID-19.
By beginning to schedule surgeries once again throughout not only our hospital system, but our broader healthcare delivery system. These are surgeries that, yes, are scheduled, but also are essential. Tumors, heart valves.
The governor made a point of saying the change would not include certain elective procedures like plastic surgery. Newsom promised the state would be careful not to overload the healthcare system so that it's always ready for a surge in COVID cases. Foundational to California's ability to emerge from the COVID crisis is the ability to test, track, trace, and isolate or quarantine people if needed. Newsom says we're on our way to testing 25,000 people a day by the end of April. One thing needed to get there is everything that goes into the tests, including swabs. He says more testing sites are being added. There are now more than 600. And he says emphasis is being placed on testing rural and inner-city communities of color. John Carroll, KPBS News.
The mayors of San Diego, Carlsbad, Encinitas, and Imperial Beach announced a plan to eventually reopen beaches and bays, although no date has been set. Coastal city mayors worked with public health officials and lifeguard agencies on a 2-phase plan that all cities will follow. Mayor Kevin Faulconer said they are focusing on the how and not the when. Meanwhile, today Imperial Beach announced a limited reopening of parks, but only for people who live nearby. No gatherings or group activities are allowed. In National City, residents are being told to cover up and wear a mask. We get more now from reporter Matt Hoffman.
We've seen over the course of the last 2 weeks an increasing number of positive reports in our South Bay communities and in particular National City. So what we said was we need to be as proactive as we can.
So if you're out in public in National City now, you'll have to wear one of these, a mask or a face covering. And yes, that includes places like the bank here behind me. Now, the National City Council voted to make the move last night unanimously, but what do people think about it?
I don't think it's a bad thing, you know?
Most people we talk to say they feel more comfortable in public when others are covering their faces.
They're keeping themselves safe, and it makes me feel safe, you know? You're like, I don't know that person, but we're all doing the same thing. We want to stay safe. We want to get rid of the virus as quick as possible, you know?
I say it's a good idea.
Others want to see it taken one step further and have county officials mandate that all San Diegans wear face coverings in public.
They should do it. I know I work for fast food, and sometimes we have customers, they come in, they don't have masks, and you know, some of us we don't feel comfortable, but you know, what can we do?
But not everyone we talked to today is happy with the requirement.
Well, I mean, I don't like it, but I mean, you have to do it, I guess. You got to be safe.
When you say you don't like it, why is that?
Because it's uncomfortable.
Many are wondering how this emergency order will be enforced.
But this also, too, is going to have an education component.
The mayor of National City is hoping everyone will comply.
We don't want to get into that enforcement of tickets or citing.
The city of Chula Vista is working on a similar order that will also require everyone in the public to cover their faces. Remember, it doesn't have to be an actual mask. A shirt or a bandana will do. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
2 deaths in California may have been the first, after all, in the U.S. from COVID-19. And as Whitney Wild reports, this news comes as the CDC says a resurgence of the virus later this year could be even worse.
A startling revelation. Autopsies from deaths in Santa Clara County, California, show 2 people died from coronavirus in early February, 3 weeks before the first known U.S. death. Even more surprising, neither person had recently traveled abroad.
That means there was community spread happening in California as early as mid-January, if not earlier than that.
As health officials draw a new infection timeline, doctors on the White House task force are sounding the alarm about the risks if a resurgence of the virus collides with flu season later this year.
It's certainly a possibility, but that's why we have built into the plan the surveillance mechanisms to look for the respiratory illnesses and then to do the appropriate testing at that time.
An infection model driving White House guidance now shows 12 states may have to wait until June or later to reopen, including South Carolina and Georgia, where officials plan to restart the economy by Friday. In some areas, plans for easing restrictions are creating rifts between state and local leaders.
We know that Texans really want to get back to work. I and my team have been working swiftly on a program to get Texas back to work.
You have to be very careful. If you open up too soon, you'll undo all the sacrifices that people make.
In Washington, Whitney Wild, KPBS News.
A woman who organized Saturday's protest in downtown San Diego is facing possible charges. Naomi Israel was one of about 100 people who rallied against California's stay-at-home order. She wrote on Facebook today that she will be arrested on Sunday for exercising her constitutional rights. Her attorneys say she faces 90 days in jail and a $1,000 fine. The San Diego Police Department has not commented on the case. A new poll finds a majority of Americans are in favor of stay-at-home orders. Only about 12% say measures to fight the outbreak go too far where they live. About twice as many believe the restrictions don't go far enough. New numbers show areas of the county hardest hit by the coronavirus. KPBS reporter Joe Hong examines the disproportionate impact and the response that will be needed.
When San Diego County health officials first released the numbers of COVID-19 cases broken down by zip code 3 weeks ago, La Jolla, Hillcrest, and Normal Heights were at the top of the list. However, officials urged residents not to read too much into the data because so little testing had been done.
To me personally, that information does not mean very much.
But since then, the number of cases has jumped in South and East County zip codes, including Chula Vista, National City, Southeast San Diego, and El Cajon. And health experts say these numbers do matter.
Do you think that your zip code is an important determinant of your health, perhaps more important than your genetic code?
Maria Rosario Araneta is a professor of epidemiology and the assistant dean of diversity at UC San Diego's medical school.
So I think it's important to look at the demographic characteristics and if you look at the mean incomes of these neighborhoods, their average incomes are less than the average in San Diego, certainly less than the average incomes in La Jolla.
Araneta said lower-income communities have higher rates of pre-existing conditions, greater housing density, and more reliance on public transportation, which could mean higher rates of COVID-19 infection.
I think that a lot of the disparities that you see throughout the United States are really based on income inequalities.
Mary Salas is the mayor of Chula Vista, home to zip codes with some of the highest case counts in the county.
Here in the city of Chula Vista, we even see the disparities within zip codes. So in some of our more affluent neighborhoods, our numbers are just as low or lower than other parts of the area. But if you look at zip codes like 91911 and 10, that is the west side of Chula Vista. 11 especially is lower in socioeconomic status.
No one should be surprised by these disparities, says Diana Ross. She's the executive director of Mid-City CAN, a community advocacy group in City Heights.
what this pandemic has really done is laid bare the disproportionalities that existed prior to COVID-19.
Ross says this current crisis is an opportunity to ask tough questions about why certain neighborhoods of San Diego thrive while others don't.
It's an opportunity to deep dive and look for policy solutions and systemic solutions to why do we have a housing crisis to begin with? Why do we have disproportionate health outcomes for Black and Brown communities? Why do we have incarceration?
In the short term, experts like Arnetta say these early numbers give health agencies the chance to plan better for the coming months.
But I think it's worthwhile to look at these targeted zip codes as an opportunity to identify where should screening, including screening of asymptomatic individuals, should be implemented.
Joe Hong, KPBS News.
For a closer look at your neighborhood, go to our website, kpbs.org. There you can find a full list of coronavirus cases by zip code. Mayor Kevin Faulconer wants to buy motels to house hundreds of homeless people now sheltered at the convention center. But KPBS partner iNewsSource found code enforcement has investigated complaints of bed bugs, roaches, and mold at 6 of the 10 motels under consideration. The city hopes to use federal funds to buy the motels and is working with the Housing Commission to assess the property's condition. For more about those locations, you can go to iNewsSource.org. There are now confirmed COVID-19 cases on 26 Navy ships. The names of the ships impacted or the exact number of cases are not being released, citing security concerns. As of today, more than 3,500 U.S. service members have tested positive. 2 service members have died, including a sailor aboard the San Diego-based USS Roosevelt. San Diegans are celebrating the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, mostly from the comfort of home. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson shows us how one climate rally went virtual.
Earth Day is typically an outdoor event in San Diego's Balboa Park, but the COVID-19 pandemic pushed the observance onto the internet.
We need to keep everybody safe. So that's really the bottom line. And so we're taking action in the way that's possible.
Masada Dizenhouse is executive director of San Diego 350. She doesn't think the pandemic is stifling the fight for the planet's future.
We feel like we can get a lot done virtually. And actually, I've been amazed at the spirit and the passion of the people who've been organizing this and how quickly people were able to pivot.
Student activist Aaliyah Castiglione says the COVID-19 pandemic is a reminder that people should listen to the scientists. She says the pandemic will go away, but the march of climate change will continue.
This is an issue that we're going to be dealing with and trying to solve our entire lives. So we want to start early because we want to create the brightest future that we can, not just for ourselves, but for everyone that comes after us.
There will be an outdoor Earth Fair in San Diego this September, pandemic permitting. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
And we had warm weather on this Earth Day, but how long will it last? Mark Mancuso has your forecast.
After a wonderful Wednesday, our fine weather continues for a couple more days. It'll be warm, it'll be dry. Times the wind's a little gusty out of the north and northeast, especially near the mountains. And over the weekend, we'll cool it off a little bit, especially Sunday into Monday. Get a little bit of an onshore flow. So the ridge has been building, and we've seen our surge of warmth for today. A nice night tonight. Clear skies in Oceanside, down the coast here. Borrego Springs, look at the low tonight, 70 degrees, even Mount Laguna in the low 50s. A beautiful night. Next couple of days, the heat builds, and here's a look at a couple of forecast highs over the next couple of days. LA, 90, 93. Palm Springs, 100, 102. And Phoenix, temperature is rising into the upper 90s. We're looking good here, nice and warm with sunshine. Tomorrow's high in Oceanside, 78. El Cajon, 89. Borrego Springs, 99. So we're about 10 degrees above average here. Mount Laguna, beautiful day, 70 degrees. So the ridge of high pressure is with us through Saturday. Much warmer conditions here. Daily highs will be challenged. Here along the coast, though, we'll start to see a little push of an onshore flow over the weekend, so temperatures trending down a little bit Saturday into Sunday. A little bit cooler there Sunday and Monday, perhaps a few clouds in the morning hours as well. Inland areas warming up. Look at that. Low 90s on Friday, and here too. Not quite as warm Sunday and Monday. In the mountains, fine stretch of weather here, plenty of sunshine. A little bit breezy at times next couple of days. And as we take you off to the deserts, temperatures will rise up into the triple digits. So some triple-digit heat is on the way, with plenty of sunshine in the area. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
And the Earth Day events of the past are leading some to have high hopes of the future. Here's KPBS reporter Claire Tregeser.
April 1970 marked the first ever Earth Day. That year, 20 million people joined rallies and celebrations across the country. Dennis Hayes was one of the organizers.
That there was a ripeness in the country for people to rise up on environmental issues. And so he did an abrupt switch, changed it from an environmental teach-in into Earth Day.
Hayes says the plan was to have a national day of awareness, but allow local environmental groups to focus on the issues that mattered most to their communities.
Everything from peeling lead paint off of walls and people in poor neighborhoods getting brain damage, to air pollution where walking down the streets of Los Angeles was like smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day just from breathing. And on and on and on, except they didn't think that they had much to do with one another. And what the purpose of Earth Day was to take all of these myriad strands and weave them together into the fabric of modern environmentalism.
In San Diego, there were events at SDSU and UCSD, but they weren't welcomed by everyone. According to a newspaper story from that day, there was a bomb threat that paused the festivities. Reaction among students was of general distaste and impatience, the story reads. One student said it was, quote, a pathetic, infantile gesture. At SDSU, the speaker was Democratic Congressman John Tunney, who went on to become a U.S. Senator. He warned about the dangers of storing nuclear waste, one that seems alarmingly prophetic. The wells will contain only a 50-year accumulation, he said. What will happen after 50 years?
I was 12, and so we had a poster contest. I don't think I won, but I definitely remember I have a visual recollection of carrying a poster through the school.
Carolyn Chase was at that first Earth Day celebration. It clearly had an impact on her. Now she's the organizer of San Diego's Earth Fair, which, except for this year, is held annually at Balboa Park.
What I was looking for, in 1970, I was a kid at school. In 1990, I was looking for how to volunteer for a local conservation group. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the purpose of Earth Day, honestly, is to get people started.
That first Earth Day also launched the recycling movement, says Rick Anthony, who was at the first one in San Diego.
It was an awakening for sure. And so Earth Day was the beginning of a trend.
Using Earth Day's momentum, he organized recycling programs at many local colleges and universities.
It was, we picked up on it. We did. That's why recycling was a great issue on our campus.
Hayes, the original organizer, says the coronavirus is an imperfect analogy to climate change, but there are lessons to be learned.
I'm hoping that it turns out to be true that humans, like literally all other animals, have not just an individual desire to survive, but a willingness to sacrifice for the species, that we really do not want to see vast overshoots and collapses of humanity, and that out of that instinctive desire to preserve ourselves, we will come up with enough intelligence to address the major threats of our era.
Claire Tregeser, KPBS News.
That story is part of hashtag Covering Climate Now, an effort by news organizations worldwide to bring about a greater understanding of the real-time impacts of climate change. For more, you can head to kpbs.org/climate change. Some residents in City Heights are making sure that excess fruits and vegetables are getting to those who need it most. KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler has the story.
Lemons, grapefruits, oranges, and other fruits are beginning to pile up in San Diego backyards. So starting last week, the El Cajon Boulevard Business Improvement Association began to organize a now weekly fruit swap, where neighbors can drop off their fruit, and those in need during the pandemic can walk, drive, or bike to pick it up. Beryl Foreman works for the El Cajon Boulevard BIA and helps organize the swap.
During this pandemic, when people have a much greater need, we think that, one very simple approach to that would be to give them free food, free fruit that is available, throughout San Diego, growing in people's yards. It's something that people can offer, give back to the community, and very well received also as well.
From 10 to 12, neighbors are invited to drop off food to be repackaged into separate bags for pickup between 12 to 2. But with colorful signs offering free fruit, drivers and passerby alike are taking advantage of the free fruit, which is ready to go almost as soon as people drop it off. Edward Hayter is the owner of Mama's Bakery in North Park. He says his restaurant is operating at 30% of capacity right now, so he has found time to volunteer in the community. He's been going up to North County to source fruit for the swap.
So I went to Escondido, picked up some avocados and lemon last week and oranges. This week I got some onions, carrots, avocado, and lemons. It's a good feeling, and I don't mind getting involved any time of day with something like this. I get called for, I'll step right up to the plate and deliver.
Beverly, who declined to give her last name, found out about the swap online this morning.
Lemons, oranges, some cactus, which I've never had, but I'm going to learn to cook it.
The fruit swap takes place every Wednesday at the fair at 44 on 44th Street and El Cajon Boulevard. In City Heights, Maxwell Nadler, KPBS News.
Every area in the county has its own unique trials when it comes to dealing with the pandemic. I spoke with Chula Vista Mayor Mary Salas about what the city is doing to keep its citizens safe. Mayor Salas, thank you so much for joining me.
It's my pleasure to be here and to be able to connect with my community through KPBS, because I know a lot of our citizens watch KPBS, and so many of them have so many questions.
Last week, the city initiated the use of drones to conduct bilingual outreach among the homeless population. Has this helped get to individuals that are in hard-to-reach areas spanned over many miles?
The fact that we had fully trained drone operators in existence that could quickly translate that knowledge and technology to go into our canyons, into our river bottoms here in Chula Vista to try to reach the homeless, I think has been very, very beneficial. They're really a hard population to reach, but it's absolutely essential that we keep those people safe as well, because those people do venture out and they are in our community, and so we must make sure that we do all that we can to keep that vulnerable population safe as well.
And Chula Vista is the second largest city in the county with almost 300,000 residents, but it's still considered a relatively small city, especially in relation to federal stimulus money. And some mayors are saying the money is being distributed unfairly and smaller cities need to compete for funds. What has this meant to you as Chula Vista mayor?
The idea of competing for funds, first of all, it's very it's technically intensive. It takes staff work to do that, to write good grants and proposals to get it. And so in the city of Chula Vista, we're blessed to have good staff that can do that. But what my concern is for smaller cities that, the smaller city where the city manager is also the community development director, that's also the planning director, so the capacity for cities to access these funds is not always fair. And we must be able to get those resources to the smaller cities. Some of those smaller cities have the most, disadvantaged communities.
Residents are understandably getting restless trying to abide by stay-at-home orders, and residents in other parts of the county are protesting for beaches and other open spaces to reopen. Do you feel this would ease some pressures, or is it just too soon?
It's really difficult, but I don't think that we're to the point yet where we can relax. I know that we're trying to develop strategies on how to unroll, how do we get to that new normal? How do we unroll that where incrementally you can start opening your parks and your beaches so that people can have room to breathe? But the other side of that is, how do you ensure the health of your community? And here in Chula Vista, our numbers are still rising, and it's very concerning to me that those numbers are still rising. We have a lot of people that are cooperating, but there are a lot of young people that think they're invincible. And not only young people, but people in their 50s and 60s that you still see that are out there without masks and not taking those precautions.
Mayor Mary Salas, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much. And keep safe, keep healthy, and keep calm.
And the city of Chula Vista has created a phone number to call for meal service. If you are homebound with a disability or if you are a senior citizen, you can call the number on your screen. That's 619-476-5350. And phone lines are available in both English and Spanish and are open from 9 to 4 Monday through Saturday. A San Diego-based a cappella choir is spreading a message of hope through song. It's on my heart when you shine it in my eyes. Can't lie, it's a sweet life. I'm stuck in the dark, but you're my flashlight on me, getting me through the night. And that's Chamber Bravura teamed up with choir members at NYU Shanghai and NYU Steinhardt for this video. The virtual performance features more than 60 middle, high, and college students across 10 states and China. Their way of saying thank you to medical professionals, first responders, and to essential workers. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.